I'd like to call to order the Lynchburg City School Board meeting for Tuesday, August the 2nd, 2022. And as we call our meeting to order, our first order of business for Section B tonight is a request from one of our board members, and it is recommended that we would, in conjunction with policy BDD, afford to Gupta electronic participation in relationship to our policy, and what is the pleasure of the board, and the reasons are so stated.
Make a motion to allow Dr. Gupta to attend electronically.
All right.
Second.
Been moved by Dr. Brennan, seconded by Dr. Sinha, that we approve the electronic participation of Dr. Gupta tonight. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, we're going to ask our clerk to please call the roll.
School Board Member Preston. School Board Member Mr. Trost.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Andrews.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much, Board. And we do want to say to Dr. Gupta, we are certainly mindful of you, and any time that you want to interject, just make that known. We're a 9-member board, and all of us are participating, whether it be electronically or in person, on tonight. This moves us to Section C of our school board meeting, which is the approval of our agenda. And the agenda has been featured for you on board docs, and I do want to thank School Board Member Day for reminding us to make sure that everyone is clear on any additions. So the religious exemption piece has been added to our consent agenda, and I think all other matters have been properly notified. What is the pleasure of the board to approve our agenda for tonight?
I move that we approve the agenda for tonight.
All right, it's been moved by Dr. Carter, seconded by Dr. Day. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Trost.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
All right, thank you. And our next order of business will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and let us be mindful of all the things that are going on in our country. Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow, that sounded great. All right. We will now move to Section D of our school board meeting, which is our time for public comments, and we are going to indicate that persons appearing before the school board will not be allowed to campaign for public office or promote private business ventures, and should not use profanity or vulgar language or gestures, make comments about a public official or an employee that are not related to their official duties, engage in behavior that disrupts the meeting or intimidates others, or address the school board on issues that do not concern the services, policies, role, and/or responsibilities of the school board. Individual speakers shall limit their comments to 3 minutes. A speaker representing a group shall limit their comments to 5 minutes. The representative shall identify the group at the beginning of their presentation. A group may have no more than one spokesperson. The total allotted time for public comments at school board meetings is 30 minutes. Public comments are reserved for the public to provide input, and the board does not respond to comments, answer questions, or otherwise engage in discussion at this time. I do want to thank this board for helping us to get our public comments to the place where we are now, and we do have a machine there that indicates a color, and once you get to red, I believe the chair will politely ask you to conclude your remarks if that were to apply. We have one person, no other forums tonight, that would like to address the school board, and this is Mr. Andrew Glover, who wants to talk to us about school policy and staffing.
All right, good evening, Lynchburg City School Board. I have just a couple quick comments over some of the material you'll be reviewing tonight. Specifically, a policy that you're going to be reviewing. That policy is in Section 1, Code IF, labeled Curriculum Development and Adoption. In this policy that you're going to be reviewing, the policy is short, it's one paragraph, but in that policy, you are currently striking the language that says the requirements of, and this is the section that gets struck, the Code of Virginia and regulations of the Virginia Board of Education, and at a minimum shall align to, and then that's the end of what you're cutting, and then the standards of learning. And so what you're doing is in cutting the words, the Code of Virginia and regulations of the Virginia School Board, and simply saying the standards of learning, well, whose standards of learning? If you're removing the state code, if you're removing the Code of Virginia, the Virginia Board of Education, and just saying standards of learning, you have no basis for what those standards of learning are. And so I just want that to be addressed because we need to have those specifically decided. One of the other policies that was brought to my attention, and I apologize because I have not had as much time as I normally have to research it, is it is my understanding that the board is potentially reviewing your stipend amount again tonight. In previous years, you went ahead and voted to give yourself a stipends, and I just take objection at any appointed board that decides to pay yourself, and then it looks like you might be actually raising that amount from last year. And I principally object to any appointed board from paying each other. It's not that I don't appreciate the hard work. That is just not the place that should happen, that any stipends should be coming from city council. And then finally, I want to address the ongoing staffing challenges. As some of you are probably aware, there was a news report at the News in Advance on the front page cover addressing some of the challenges that you're having. One concerning thing in that report right on the front page is it said, quote, school administration would not say exactly how many teaching positions are currently vacant in the school system. And so last month I highlighted this quite clearly, that you guys needed to have a very transparent, blunt, and urgent discussion on this matter. And it doesn't appear to be fixed. I went to the hiring portal again this morning, and you have 279 positions posted open, and that's not all teaching, and I get that. But I compared that to Bedford, which has only 40, Campbell County 27, Amherst 28, Roanoke 81, and Charlottesville 72. And so if you add up Bedford, Campbell, Amherst, Roanoke, and Charlottesville, Lynchburg City Schools has more unfilled positions than all of those combined. So yes, other places are having issues, but you're having really big issues, and I'm not hearing these conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Glover. At this time, we will now move to Section E, the student representative comments, and we do not have our reps in place yet as for summer vacation, and we look forward to them coming when that time occurs. We will now move to Section F, which is our finance report, and I'm going to ask Dr. Edwards to bring on our wonderful Mrs. Capazzi.
Okay, so Mrs. Capazzi is here to go over the June 2022 finance report. Ms. Capazzi.
I'm actually going to defer to Barbara only because this is the final for our year previous to the audit, and she's just more experienced with it than I am.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Okay, so our year-to-date revenue received is 92.29%. Our expenditures to date is 98.37%, and our expenditures including encumbrances is 99.6%. We are still finishing up accruals this week, so these numbers are still subject to minor changes because we have moved into the new budget, but we are still closing out last year's budget, so there still will be minor changes to this. And then on the health insurance summary, the ending balance is a negative 1.4. I'm sorry, my bifocals just went out. 1.4. Karen, can you read that number? My bifocals for some reason are catching up.
It's 1.455 million, yes.
Thank you. I couldn't tell if that was a 5 or an 8, I'm sorry. So unless there's any questions, that gives the basic coverage.
All right, Dr. Gupta, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, Dr. Day?
Just comparing the report you just gave to the report of July 12th, the expenditures, including encumbrances, was higher on July 12th than it is here.
And the reason for that is because the way our accounting system works, we have to encumber all of the salaries. And so once we get to the end of the year and the end of the pay cycle, we release all of those extra encumbrances. And so that's why the figure dropped, because we actually released money, but we were spending that money in other categories knowing it was going to be released as well.
Good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Dr. Brennan?
I don't have a particular question regarding the report, but just a comment, which is thank you so much for including the CARES funding in our reports that we get monthly. It might be helpful to the board that if there's a change in the CARES funding month to month, maybe we get a little notice of saying, please note that there was this extra spending, otherwise we kind of go through and compare it. And I also know that you all mentioned last time about trying to look at the format that we have for expenses and revenues, and I think the board would say, go with God to do that as far as helping us to get the information in a way that you think would be more helpful for us to see it, because it's very difficult now with the line item program. So thank you very much for looking at that, probably with the Finance Committee, I would suspect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Any other questions or discussion for our finance people? All right, thank you so much for this report. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, that now moves us to the consent agenda, and there are 5 items on the consent agenda for our consideration for action. The minutes from the July the 12th, 2022 board meeting, the minutes from the July the 26th, 2022 school board work session, religious exemption, a human resources report, and the human resources report addendum. I do want to indicate that appropriate corrections were made around the closed meeting, or meeting that we had last time, and that has been so stated. And Dr. Edwards, for religious exemption, can you just say a brief statement about that so our new board members can just know what we're looking for that and how that happens?
Yeah, so the code does provide that parents and guardians can exempt their children from compulsory attendance, public school attendance, for religious exemption, and they submit the necessary requirements to the school board clerk. So you will see that on the board agenda from time to time whenever we have parents that do that. The board does have to approve that, and we do have to note that. And that is part of Virginia code, that is an option for them to do it. We most often try to do it before the agenda is made public, but sometimes the parent letters come a little bit later, and we still try to accommodate that. And this one, given that school is going to start next week, we want to make sure that we account for all of the kids.
Question?
Dr. Day, yes, sir.
So if I understood you correctly, these kinds of requests always come to the board? You don't have the authority to just make an administrative decision about these? They always come to the board?
They are always approved by the board on the consent agenda, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the clerk has acknowledged that we have the proper information we need, the name and other details. Is there a motion to approve the, okay, go right ahead, Dr. Brennan.
So I did submit this request to the administration, and whether this is the correct time or not, but I did ask if we get some information about the open positions that are available now, the problem that we've had with staffing this year compared to previous years. Not at all to be critical of the administration or their efforts, particularly human resource. I know they're trying hard. I know this is a general problem. It's true in teaching, it's true in education and in healthcare. It's a major problem, but just to bring the board up to date on where we stand and where we're headed in the future to try to address this. And again, Dr. Edwards, is it the right time is fine or later, whatever is convenient.
Yep, this is the perfect time to do it, and we have Director Scott here. I did forward her your question, so.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Want to go ahead and start talking about staffing. Despite the challenges across the nation, we have successfully filled vacancies and are continuing to bring great talent to LCS. We continue to work hard to fill the staff positions in our schools with the best candidates in order to continue the success of our students. We currently still have a few candidates going through the hiring process. Also, I know we have enrollment day next week, so it may be some internal movement with the schools as well based on the data from enrollment. We also came up with some creative and we seek some innovative ways to address some of these vacancies. So we offer some hiring incentives. We have been also, doing hiring fairs throughout the year, partnering with the Virginia Career Works. But we don't have the actual number right now, but we should have that pretty soon. Now, the mission critical positions are math, science, and SPED positions.
Math, science, and
SPED.
Special education.
special education, okay.
So,
Any questions before I get to the resignations? Because I think you had a questions regarding that too.
well, let me just add to the, what we have been doing, just so for the board's knowledge and for the community's knowledge. As Ms. Scott said, mathematics is probably one of the most challenging ones to fill. And it's even more challenging in just finding certified candidates. So it's not even like there is a large pool of certified candidates. We did try very hard to work and see if we can expand some of the requirements for career switchers. So you could have, let's just say, experience in mathematics, but you have to have a bachelor's degree to even qualify for a career switcher. So some of the folks that we were excited about, some of our instructional assistants and some of our substitutes have associate's degrees and experience, but they do not even qualify for approaching any of the licensure until they get a bachelor's degree. So it's one of the things that, we as superintendents are struggling with and looking at ways of, is that something that we can work with on a statewide level to see if there are ways to open up the pipeline for teachers for career switchers. That being said, when we made it mission critical, that's where we focused our bonuses, our signing bonuses in that area, our retention. So it's a recruitment and a retention. We did have, and I know there's concern about staff leaving, what you don't hear about is the staff that stay. So we have been having, I won't even call them exit conferences because we don't let them exit. We have a stay conference with some of our staff, and we work with them to try to keep them here in Lynchburg City Schools. And we have been very successful with a couple staff who were being wooed by other places, divisions, colleges, and professions. It's not just going into public schools. It's you can just make more money in a totally different profession. So those are some of the things that we have been doing in terms of that. The other thing that we are looking at, particularly at the elementary level, is class size. And one of the things we may ask this board and community to do is rethink Enrollment Day. Enrollment Day is August 10th. And as much as we encourage and we have fast pass and everything to register early, if folks wait until August 10th, we don't have an adequate class size number especially for our elementary levels, to say whether or not it's okay to take one of the third grade teachers from a particular school and move that teacher to another school because enrollment is low. Right now, in some cases, we are doing it. We're being brave and bold and shifting staff, and that's one of our protocols. We're just hopeful that on August 10th that we don't have an influx of kids that are all like, hey, what happened to third grade at this school when you remove the teacher? So that's one way of, you may see some positions that we're kind of holding because we're not sure about our enrollment, but we already have a plan B for moving staff, collapsing positions to do that. The other thing that we have not really talked about, and again, is incentivizing those staff members who are here. We did this last year and continue to do it this year, is if you are, and it works a little easier at a secondary level than it does at elementary, although we did do some creative things. If you are a staff member who's willing to take on an additional class, so you're going to give up your prep period. We do pay staff to take on an additional class, and then rather than waiting until it's like, okay, we're 3 weeks in and we don't have a teacher, we're offering that option to staff ahead of time so that we can kind of see. And then it'd be great if we don't need it, but at least we know that we have staff. We did not get rid of the position, though, because the goal is to hire the teacher. However, the ultimate goal is to make sure that the classes are adequately staffed with qualified teachers. So that's another thing that we are doing. One of the things that this will impact is when we do start moving staff and using staff, because we don't want our schools to be filled with substitutes, and another reason to enroll early is class sizes or class grade levels at certain schools may start to close. So in other words, if you have an elementary school and let's just say it's fifth grade, and fifth grade, all 3 sections are packed with 25 kids each, but across town you've got 3 other schools that have 12, 15, 17, it's cost efficient to move the kids to the other school than it is to try to find another teacher for the school that has fifth grade. Again, that was something that we have done in the past on limited. It's not our first choice solution, but it does help keep class size manageable for our staff. It also helps keep not only costs down of hiring another teacher, but finding another teacher to hire is another one of those things that we have been doing with regard to that. So.
And just to add to that, we also, we do have subs ready and available to when school start as well.
Yeah, last year we had building-based subs that were in the buildings. And the first year of COVID, we kept them in the specific buildings, not to mix population when we were first dealing with COVID. A little bit more if they weren't needed in their building, they went to another building last year. So we do plan for that, as well as we still have long-term subs just for regular absenteeism, people who are out on leaves.
You said something that kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit. One of those things is that you have some people that don't necessarily have a degree in a particular subject area, but they do have experience both in that area and perhaps as being substitute teachers or whatever. How feasible is it for those people to be hired as long-term subs and/or whatever for a temporary basis? Is that possible?
And that's what we are doing right now, and then they can give them some time to take a practice, yes.
So we are trying to get people on board, say pending passing the praxis, or even pending finishing that last course. The challenge we have with keeping anyone in there permanently is we're on a 90-day. After 90 days,
Yes.
I can't keep that sub. So I could be the best chemist, but not be a chemistry teacher. And if I don't have the certification, or if I haven't met all the coursework, or I haven't taken the praxis or whatever other combination, we're limited to only having them in there for 90 days.
Can they be rotated though?
They can.
They can.
They can, yeah.
All right.
So that buys you a little more time.
Yeah.
What the chair would like to at least bring before the board, typically in consent agenda, if there's something that requires further discussion, we will pull it. And this is becoming a very lengthy but very important discussion. But I would recommend, if it is okay with the board, that the board state to the chair, what is your pleasure about the continuance of this discussion, either in new business, and let's go ahead and approve the consent agenda, or we can put this back on a work session for the next meeting. I just want to throw that out for our consideration at this time. Because we could go ahead and take care of G1 and G2 and G3 and hold 4 and 5, if that gives us, Mr. Vice Chair.
So if we,
Good.
what's the consequences if we hold 4 and 5?
It just gives the legitimacy to continue the discussion, but typically we don't have all of these discussions during consent agenda.
Okay, but they, I mean, yeah, 4 and 5, so people can still be hired. That doesn't
Oh, yeah.
stop the process.
As long as you approve them, yeah.
Okay, so if we don't approve them, they're talking about pulling these.
I'm gonna let Dr. Coleman.
So what does
for
that
the
mean?
amount of time he's talking about
Yeah,
pulling.
right.
Oh.
Dr. Brennan, did you have something you want to
I
offer?
would just suggest it sounded like there'd be some more information coming from Human Resources to answer the question. So I appreciate the administration addressing it, and I did not mean to prolong it, but I do think it's an important topic, and I think we should get additional information at a later date. So I would vote that we proceed with the consent agenda, if that's okay.
Dr. Gupta had his hand up.
Dr. Gupta, please, I'm so sorry, sir. Go right ahead.
Just wanted to say, I think we should proceed and put it for a discussion in a work session for much broader discussion. But it's very easy to beat the superintendent down on this issue, but it's a pandemic, as I said, across the industries. And numbers are powerful. If I pick a number, Amherst County has only 4,000 students versus Lynchburg has 8,000 students. So it's not apples to apples comparison, but we can have much detailed discussion at a later date.
Well said, Dr. Gupta, and please forgive me for not noticing that your hand was up. So if that be the case, and the Vice Chair has acknowledged that information has been given, we'll put this on an agenda for a work session. And is there a motion now to approve the consent agenda from items 1 through 5?
I move that we approve the consent agenda for items 1 through 5.
Moved by Dr. Carter, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Sinner. Any further questions or discussion?
Just
Yes,
one
Dr. Carter.
discussion. I've said this before, but this is not the scariest human resources report I've seen. I've seen some that are 4 and 5 pages, so I don't know what but it was, I mean, it's always good to talk about it, but this is not something that Lynchburg City is the outlier. We're seeing this everywhere. It's difficult in every organization. It's difficult to keep people, to hire people. So,
Thank you, Dr. Carter. I think that this has been a good piece, and we'll put it on the work session. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Charles.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and let it so note for the work session, further discussion on that particular matter. Moves us now to Section H with our school board member reports. And I do want to thank our Vice Chair who drafted and a letter was approved and sent out notifying all of the appropriate individuals, Partners in Education, Education Foundation, Beacon of Hope, the Gov School, Laurel, et cetera, of appointments. And I think that will make for a smooth movement. Some people have already been reaching out. And so thank you, Vice Chair, for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Also, I would like to acknowledge at this point that I know some of the groups have not met. So if there's an individual who has any significant information to share, I would entertain that person at this time. So you can just speak up if you have anything that you'd like to say. Otherwise, we will move on. Dr. Gupta, please.
I have, I don't know who the liaison for Educational Foundation is. I've said it before, we have to spread these events out across different institutions. And that was my request last year, and I'm putting that request again this year.
So noted. And we do have a variety of places where things can be held. And so that, make sure that is recorded, Madam Clerk, about venue options for some of these activities. And of course, we'll work in collaboration the best we can to help meet that request. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. All right, Dr. Sinha.
I had sent an email
Yes.
regarding the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting because there's a conflict with the joint city council meeting. I didn't get a response. So I think it would be helpful if we could schedule, or at least if you could get back to me if that date. I think I proposed August 30th.
Yeah. And so I did see that, Dr. Sinha, and even though I'm not on the group, I did send and said, great. I thought it was great. But I'm not.
And I
on the group.
realize
Yeah.
nobody's been made chair or whatever, but I would hate to see us miss that opportunity.
So that's Dr. Gupta and Mr. Andrews?
Myself, Dr. Andrews, Dr. Gupta, and then Dr. Day is
And
the
Dr. Day.
alternate.
Dr. Day is the alternate.
I am?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Mr. Andrews?
Yeah, so you'll be copied on all correspondence, even as the alternate, just so you're in the loop.
Go ahead, Mr. Andrews.
I didn't
What's your-
see an email, Dr. Sinha, but I'm good on the 30th of August.
Okay, it would be at 3:30 on the 30th.
Dr. Gupta, will that work for you?
Me too, yes.
All right, then, thank you. That group will gather on the 30th and determine leadership and continue to move us forward. And staff, I'm assuming that'll be all right.
Yeah, we had responded
Okay.
that that was fine with
Great.
us.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you, so that was stated. All right, any further?
One other thing, I am a liaison on the Education Foundation, and as we're all aware, Jody Gillette will be leaving. I propose that we put together, I don't know how this works, some kind of affirmation or acknowledgement to present to her. She's done a fantastic job all these many years with the foundation and supporting our students, and we really need to honor and celebrate her contributions.
I think the board shares your sentiments, Dr. Sinha, and so I'll get with Dr. Edwards and our vice chair, and we'll talk it out on how we can get that done before, when is she scheduled? Is it already happening?
End of June, but she did respond to the email that we sent out, so I'm sure that she's not leaving town.
Yeah, so we'll do that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha. All right, if there are no other persons that have anything significant to say, thank you for that, Dr. Sinha. We'll now move to Section I, which is our comprehensive strategic plan. We do have one, and we want the public to know that. And one aspect of that now, Dr. Edwards, cue up our facilities master plan.
Yes, yes. So our comprehensive strategic plan is located on our website in a couple places, but it's specifically located on the board section of our website. So if you go there, you can click on it as well. The first one we're going to talk about is our facilities master plan, and we've been meeting to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wotica to go over a real brief timeline of the next steps.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Edwards, and good evening, everyone. As you will recall, last year, the LCS commissioned and received a facilities condition assessment to really help us inform our future facilities master plan as we go forward. And so this helped us answer the questions related to what our facilities look like right now and what needs to be done and are they meeting our needs. This certainly has allowed us to begin the development of the comprehensive sort of maintenance and capital plan, but certainly will inform our larger facilities plan as we move forward. So the next step in this process will be to develop an understanding of what do we do in those buildings as we move forward. So understanding the programming needs in our facilities. And so our next step, and I'll talk about the timeline in just a moment, is to think through hiring a national educational consultant to help us understand national trends and how we compare our programs to what are national trends and opportunities for development of our various programs that we have, be they the sort of traditional educational programs or non-traditional programs like our pre-K program or our gifted program, and what do we need to do to develop our facilities in order to make those programs be as effective as they possibly can be, and ultimately to help craft a process by which we develop that, again, that master plan. So once we have that information completed, we'll fuse that together with our facilities assessment report, figure out what buildings we can and can't use for the work that we want to do in our future buildings as we write, finally, ultimately, our master facilities plan as we go forward. So we'll point out in your board packet there is a very draft timeline of how this process will work. So the first thing I'll point out is that there will be a joint city and schools staff work group to work through these ideas together. As we know, we work better when we work together. So helping to understand what the financial capacity and programmatic and community needs are in our community to help develop that. So we'll develop that group as we've been working with that group to some extent already, and so we'll develop that more formally this month. We'll develop an RFP and advertise for that consultant services. That'll occur, and that work will occur this fall for a couple of months. And later in the late fall, we'll be talking about developing our sort of internal framework to bring back to you for some ideas on how we might achieve some of the goals, both in the instructional work as well as in the facilities master plan. And then we'll bring it to you probably this winter to sort of talk through, discuss options for frameworks for how we go forward. Once you figure out exactly where you want to go with that, then we will write actual final master plan so we can communicate to the community what we're doing. As the whole time, there's several opportunities, I think, for community engagement, to hear back from the community on some of the ideas that we have, as well as get their feedback and receive their feedback and information that they need us to know as we move forward. So you can see that sort of process that we go forward in your board document, and we'd be certainly happy to take any questions you might have.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Waterker, for sharing. Any salient and significant points, Dr. Day, please?
It just occurred to me when you were talking before about needing to move students from one school to another to accommodate the availability of slots in an appropriate classroom there. I would think those kinds of things are relevant to this discussion. If you're finding that you're always moving students from here to there, then that probably has an impact on the facilities. So I guess it's an obvious point, but I just want to make sure that.
Absolutely, it's a great point, and a core part of this conversation with our educational consultant will be crafting a student assignment plan that will ensure that we are meeting the needs of the students as well as supporting the strengths of neighborhoods and that sort of thing. So it's really critical, and I think I really appreciate that point.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Dr. Brennan.
Dr. Walker, thank you for bringing your organizational skills to Lynchburg City Schools. This is very helpful. Two quick questions. One is, will the joint city school staff work group, will that include, you envision that including city council members and maybe board members? And my reason being that it's going to be such an important discussion of this process, ultimately going to city council, to have those members involved and maybe some board members involved early on.
Right.
It'd be worth considering.
So it's a great question, and certainly we would be happy to talk about that. The way we've envisioned this now is to really work out the sort of nitty-gritty technical details at the staff level and develop a number of options for you and your colleagues to consider. And I think maybe at that point it might be appropriate to bring some board members in and city council members in and kind of dive into those details. But dealing through numbers, details of student assignment numbers and things like that, it might probably be better at the staff level at this point, and then we'll move into that as well. But
I think that the facilities report suggested towards the end that they thought a working group that would also consist of city council, maybe some community members. I think at some point to have that be part of it, because my second comment was what you've already brought up, is that I think Dr. Edwards and her staff have been so good so far trying to keep the public involved with all the community conversations that we had, that I'd hate for that to get ahead of the public. It's going to be such an important situation. So to have that in there, at the beginning, how we will report community involvement in some way, I think would be very helpful for the ultimate outcome of the project. But thank you very much for designing this and spearheading it.
So noted. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Dr. Gupta, anything you would like to bring to the table on this matter? And thank you
yes,
for
sir.
your involvement.
If I was running a project management institute, I would have given Dr. Waterker a PMP certification.
All right.
Great job. But I understand public is important, but smaller the group, being on the task force, I found smaller the group, better the functioning will be in the initial stages. Because if you make it anybody and everybody and their mother and father, you will not go anywhere. So, but I agree with Dr. Brennan that sharing with public, I'm hoping you'll be sharing with the school board on a regular basis as your work group proceeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. All right, Dr. Waterker, it's clear you're bringing immense talent and collaborative skills that we have needed, and we thank you for that. All right, I2, strategic plan goal update. Dr. Edwards, cue up Ms. Pugh.
Okay, and this is, again, in our strategic plan for English language learners. And I'm going to have Ms. Pugh just give us an update on where we are with that.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards, and good afternoon, board members. Objective 1.6.5 of our strategic plan reviews, as Dr. Edwards said, it's to review and revise and enhance our English language learners programs and services. And there are several strategies in there of which we have made great progress. First of all and foremost, we have hired a Title III coordinator, and Title III is the federal grant that is over our English learners as well as immigrant youth. So we have not had a Title III coordinator for many years now, and that position is vital in terms of making sure that the programs and services are offered to our students and that our families are connected and they have access to those resources. So I am proud to say that we hired an internal candidate, Mr. Kenneth Burrows. He was and has been an ESL teacher in Lynchburg City Schools for a while, and he has been very busy since he began July 1st working on our processes, working with teachers, looking at numbers of students, and reassigning teachers based on a caseload. I'm happy to say that at this point, we are fully staffed with our ESL teachers. We have 12 teachers. Some of them are part-time, so it's a smaller FTE, but all of those are fully staffed. As I mentioned, Mr. Burrows has reviewed caseloads. He's made reassignments where it makes sense for some of the staff, which is strategy, I believe it is B, strategy B. So really streamlining instructions. So those schools that have fewer English learners, making sure that we are providing the same instruction for them and the same support for them at those schools. We are continuing to identify in the screening process. Mr. Burrows has developed a uniform enrollment process as well as identification process. He has put together training materials, which includes documentation and videos, and all of our school level staff that participate in enrollment or registration at all are required by the federal government to be trained in the identification and the enrollment process as related to English learners. So he's been busy working on that, and we pushed that out today for our staff ahead of our enrollment day next Tuesday. We do have translation services for our documents and also interpreters where we need it for our parents, which again is one of our strategies. We use a third-party service, and our schools have access to that as well as our departments. And we have been very busy. One of the things that we're most proud of this year is our online enrollment through Infinite Campus. In the past, it had only been available in English, and this year there is actually a translated enrollment in Spanish. Next year, we will continue to add other languages that are the most spoken for our LCS students. And we are working to improve our performance on the assessment, which is the access for ELL, and that reviews and looks at the progress that our EL students are making. I don't have comparative data, but I can say that this year, in the 21-22 school year, 56.65% of our students are progressing, so they're making progress in their skills for English language, the ability to communicate, and the skills that are most crucial to education in the classroom. We exceed the state goal, which is 54%. So we are doing great things for our EL students and our families as well.
All right, any questions concerning Dr. Day?
Yeah, I'm armed with questions tonight. Thank you for answering all my questions earlier by email. So you said the Infinite Campus is now available in Spanish?
The online registration.
The registration is available in Spanish. Yes. And you said in the future you hope to add other languages that are...
Yes.
My question is simply, do you know what other languages are common in our area besides Spanish?
Yes, the four most common languages in Lynchburg City Schools, Spanish being number 1, Dari is number 2, Pashto is number 3, and Ukrainian is number 4.
Ukrainian.
And in the translation services, there is a very extensive list of languages to be translated in. So all of our documents. So our online registration, which is an online component, has been translated into Spanish. But some of the registration materials, the paper forms, have been already translated into Spanish, Dari, Pashto, and Ukrainian. So we're really making strides to make sure that our parents are well informed. Many of the departments, special education, for example, has reached out to me for translation of IEP documentation. So the parents who don't read English and don't understand English can have that IEP document, the individual education plan, in their language. We have worked to have some of the other forms that parents fill out, some from student services, from the truancy and social services area, so giving information to the parents in their native language. So we've really expanded in the past 2 years.
Thank you.
That was a great question, Dr. Day. I learned something from that question. Good. Mr. Trost?
How much does that cost?
The translation services?
Yeah.
It is a per word cost.
I mean, just the program to do all this translation.
We have currently about a $10,000 open PO with this company. And that is typically what we spend in a year to translate these documents. And it's professional translation. And it is, we think we can rely on Google translators and Google translation, but that is not an accurate translation into that language.
And how many people does that support average? I'm trying to see cost per person or family.
Sure. At this point, we have 200 and I have it written down, I'm sorry. We have 252 students. And so that would be their families as well. So it might include a mother and a father, a grandmother and an aunt. It might include younger siblings, those types of things. So our active enrollment for currently identified English learners is 252, as I said. We have students that are actually EL students, and then we have students that have progressed, but we are required to monitor those as well. So our teachers and our services would still go to those 49 students that we're monitoring.
And granted, I understand it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but is there any way to transfer some of that burden or that cost on the people that are utilizing the services? Is there any mechanism in place for that?
No, sir. And I think for those families that are coming, a lot of these families are refugee families. They're moving in and they don't have those resources. So it is a service that we provide for our families.
Okay, thank you, well noted. This is a part of the story we must tell. I'm amazed day after day what Lynchburg City Schools provides, the quality that we are providing it, and well stated, Mr. Trost, in terms of some of your concerns. Anything else? All right, we can move right along, and that will now bring us to unfinished business. And I'm going to ask Dr. Edwards to review. These are going to both be action items, but we're going to start with our governance policy review. Dr. Edwards?
Certainly. So at the last work session, I think I presented 28 policies and regs. Tried to take notes as best as I could on the ones that we needed to cycle back and definitely revisit. That's not to say that any of them aren't open for discussion, but I at least like to start with the ones that I noted that we had questions on, and I know Attorney Towns has also remarked on them as well. So I'm going to ask that we start with BDD, which is the electronic participation in meetings from remote locations. And at our last meeting, we had a discussion on page 2 about the number of times that a member may use the remote option for personal reasons. And our current practice have been twice. The board had some discussion about possibly wanting more than twice. Since then, Attorney Towns has provided you all with the code that says it's either twice or 25% of the meetings, whichever is greater. So what you have before you in policy, we struck the language out, but we can certainly add more than twice or the rest of the code language that talks about the 25% of the meetings, or whichever is greater, if that is the will of the board on that one.
All right, let me, and we'll acknowledge each of us, and we're speaking directly to the point. And I'm thankful for the board member that raised that, additionally to the excellent suggestion that Dr. Edwards had presented and others had banded around. But I interpreted from that that would mean roughly 6 meetings rounded off to the greater number. And so, Dr. Brennan.
No, I'm sorry. I think Dr. Gupta, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
I
you're
didn't mean
okay.
to,
Go
I
right
think Dr.
ahead.
Gupta had raised his hand.
All right, Dr. Gupta, go right ahead.
Let me give the board a real-life example of what the 2 meetings will do. I tested positive for COVID last Monday, so I missed the Tuesday's meeting. And today is another Tuesday. Today is the second meeting. And Dr. Brennan is my witness. If we follow the CDC guidelines, I may very well be sitting beside you on a chair next to you and still be COVID positive, which I will never do. So the way these variants are coming along, we don't want to put ourselves at risk where we force members to show up on a school board meeting. Just take my example. If you had this 2-minute restriction, CDC tells me after tomorrow I'm free and I'll be sitting between Dr. Carter and Dr. Day.
No. And I was happy.
You can sit beside me, I'm not worried about it.
Thank you for that, Dr. Gupta. Thank you, and we thank you. All right, Dr. Brennan, then Dr. Day.
So there was an informal discussion, not in person, with board members, with Dr. Sinye and myself, Dr. Coleman, Dr. Edwards, to try to get the sense of the board. And as Dr. Edwards said, we thought initially what we could do is just strike that last sentence and just not have any limit on it. Dr. Attorney Towns has come through to say that there is actually state legislation we need to be aware of, and she has actually, as about an hour ago, sent us a statement that she suggests. I don't know if Attorney Towns is here, Dr. Coleman, if she wants to comment, or should we can just read off of her.
Attorney Towns, are you on?
I'm on. However, I don't have any comment at this time unless there's any questions about the language change.
Right, so from your perspective, having forwarded to the members of the board, in essence, that would translate for 24 meetings, upward 6 meetings. Would it be advisable?
Correct.
Would it be advisable to put 6, or would we be, well, anyway, that's enough said on that. But it's a number 6 that would include if you wanted to take the code literally for us.
So Attorney Towns has sent us suggestional wording for this. I don't know if she wants to comment or wishes read it, what she's suggesting we change the wording to.
And I will add that is the language that's also in the current policy. That the Virginia School Board Association recommends. So I did take that language from their version of the policy.
All right, Dr. Day.
There's 2 things I think we should clarify. So the Virginia Code limits us to 2 meetings or 25% of the total number of meetings, whichever is largest. As BDD currently stands, it does not include that 25% of the total. As it stands before us now, the proposed revision simply says 2. So even though the state would allow us to go higher than that, our local policy would not unless we amend it. Secondly, as I read the existing policy, the limitation of 2 does not apply to when people need to participate remotely because of a medical reason.
Correct.
So in Dr. Gupta's case, if COVID keeps him out for 5 meetings in a row, that's fine. It's only when it's sort of a non-specific personal reason that the limit we're talking about applies.
Thank you, Dr. Day. So would we feel comfortable, and I'll yield to Dr. Brennan, whatever the appropriate language, because we're bringing it to you that has been, the 2 was taken out, it gets left out. Now, do we want to put 6? Dr. Brennan.
So my understanding is that Attorney Towns, based on the legislation, based on the board's discussion, is suggesting the following be added rather than that last sentence that said, beginning with however. This says, quote, participation by a school board member by electronic communication means due to personal matter is limited each calendar year to 2 meetings or 25% of the meetings held per calendar year rounded up to the whole next number, whichever is greater, period, end quote. And I assume we would probably reference that state law as part of that policy.
So putting it that way, you don't have to put a number because it could be 6, or we could end up having 35 meetings in the end. And hopefully not, but that would be the case. Would we be comfortable? Would we be comfortable with inserting the language that Dr. Brennan just read?
From Dr. Attorney Towns.
What you just read
Okay.
from Attorney Towns to the language, that would go in, and I think that solves the problem for BDD, at least in my mind. All right, wait a minute, Dr. Center, did you want to remark? Go right ahead.
You had sent me a sentence, I found it was just a little wordy.
Yeah,
So
good.
to trim it down,
Sure.
I changed that sentence to say, however, a member may not participate remotely for personal matters more than 6 times per year or 25% of scheduled board meetings.
Whichever is larger.
Whichever is larger.
And excuse me, board members, I will add this, another consideration as far as perhaps limiting numbers. You all do have boards within Lynchburg City Schools where you all have 3 board members, such as your legislative advocacy group, where you may wish to use this policy as well. But this policy does not affect only school board meetings, but any other meetings that would be applicable to FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act.
That's interesting.
So is that committee meetings then?
Yeah.
Yes, a committee meeting could possibly also be a meeting that falls under this policy.
All right, so that we can get right to the point, let's embrace, Kim, Dr. Sinha, what you just said.
I just said, however, a member may not participate remotely for personal matters or reasons more than 6 times per year or 25% of scheduled board meetings, and then in parentheses, whichever is greater.
All right, now, Doctor, do you want to speak to that point, Dr.
Yes,
Day? Go right
yes.
ahead.
If under some extreme circumstances, we did not meet, 6 times 4 is 24. If we did not meet 24 times a year, this would be in violation of the Virginia Code, because it would allow us to meet 6 times when the code limits us to 25% of the total number of meetings.
So then if you go back to what I think Bob read that Attorney Towns stated originally, is no numbers, it's just going to be based upon the percentage, et cetera. So let's go with that language,
Okay.
okay?
25%.
Restate that, Dr. Brennan, please.
I'm going to direct this towards Attorney Traust this time.
Oh, God.
Participation by a school board member by electronic communication means due to a personal matter is limited each calendar year to 2 meetings or 25% of the meetings held per calendar year, rounded up to the next whole number, whichever is greater.
All right.
Fine.
Dr. Edwards, I know you can support that, and all of us can support that. I think that answers all of the questions, and of course, we've got to have somebody who's going to tabulate all of that, and our awesome clerk will help us with all of those details. All right? So that's that one. Is it the pleasure of the, well, we've got one other.
Yeah.
Let's,
Well, you have 2 others.
we got 2 others. All right,
Yes,
go
yeah.
ahead.
This one may be minor. BDDEZ, which is Rules of Order.
Okay,
And we had a discussion about Robert's Rules of Order revised, and now there's newer versions of that that are not called revised. So what we did was bring it back to the school board, and you'll see on your new one, we took out the word revised and just wrote the current version of Robert's Rule of Order. That way, we're always using the most recent, no matter what they change it or call it or
Right.
addition it, if that's okay.
That's good.
I don't think we have any problem with that. And let's go to the other.
And the other one that we discussed was the BHDZ, which is the one regarding board member compensation. And as you recall, Attorney Towns had sent you the information about the change in the law. And one of the reasons why we brought this policy forward is because we needed to outline the amount. It used to be stated and clear that it was $2,400, that's it. Now it could be multitude of amounts, but for this current year, this current school year, that amount is $2,400. So that's why you see the $2,400 in the policy. If you want to make a change, which would be effective July 1 of next year, you would have to do so before December 31st of this current fiscal year, or 2022, and that will be, whatever amount you put in there will be in effect for July 1. So as it currently stands, the $2,400 is the max that anyone can earn as a stipend in this current school year.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. And as chair tonight, I would highly recommend that we deal with BHDZ as it is presented, and 2 board members can bring up on an agenda going forward prior to December 31st any will to adjust in harmony with what the code now says. And so if there's no further discussion on it, then the 2,400 gets us back in code because we agree that it's 2,400. All right, any further discussions on that? All right.
Dr. Gupta.
Dr. Gupta, Dr. Gupta, please go ahead.
I just wanted to state for the record, I have not taken stipend so far, and I'm against increasing any stipends going forward. I think we need to deal with, as I say in my background, my teachers' salaries first before we look at our own stipends. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. All right, are there any other?
Those were the only ones that I noted that I had notes on for discussion from last time.
All right, so then if it would please the board, the chair would call for a recommendation to approve all of the governance policies that are presented before you, and they are listed there for your awareness. I would dare not read all of them because it is so many. What is the pleasure of the board concerning the governance policy with the adjustment that we made to BDD, and everything else is as you have it?
I move that we approve the governance policies with the additions made to that particular policy.
All right.
Which was BDD.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Trost. Any further questions or discussion on the motion to approve the governance policies that have been presented with the adjustment to BDD? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Preston.
Approved.
School Board Member Mr. Trost.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes?
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
All right, Dr. Edwards, you can cue us up now for instruction and program policy review.
Okay, and last time again, we reviewed these with you, and Ms. Pugh will take you through instruction and program.
I did. So last time I took you through quite a few instruction programs, instruction and program policies. They are all VSBA updates. The majority of them are minor language changes, word changes. I did not note any questions for me to follow up on. So unless you have questions or conversation, I don't have anything else to add.
All right, Mr. Trost?
I do want to follow up on Mr. Glover's comment with respect to policy IF. Can you give me a little bit of the background as to why that language is being stricken, that we follow the Code of Virginia and the Virginia Board of Education, if you know?
Well, the shall meet or exceed really is just a wording change.
Right.
The Code of Virginia and regulations of the Board of Virginia of Education, at a minimum, and I think they are staying now that they are aligned with the standards of learning. And to me, it is inferred that the standards of learning are the Virginia State Standards of Learning, which are our standards that guide curriculum and instruction. Those are the standards of which we teach, and they're the standards of which we test multiple times every year. So I think it is an inference there that you would know that standards of learning are the state standards of learning.
It's actually listed. The code reference 22.1, 253.13.1. If you read that, and one of the reasons why standards of learning is capitalized is because when you read the code, it says programs supporting the standards of learning in the code. So the reference to standards of learning goes to that particular code that is also on the policy where it defines the standards of learning.
I don't like to infer anything. So I would rather have it more explicit. Granted, you have a cross-reference there, but if something is not explicit, there's always open to interpretation. And when you have things open to interpretation, you have an area for a problem. So do we say the Virginia Standards of Learning? Do we say the Virginia Board of Education Standards of Learning? Whatever it is, I hate to be nitpicky, but I just would rather be more explicit so there's no question, nobody's to infer anything. You're being told exactly what it is. I mean, I think Mr. Glover, it's a valid point. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way.
Mr. Andrews?
I'm in agreement. I mean, if we can do the same thing for Robert's Rules, right, the addition, I think we could do the same thing for this. So just.
So just a
It's
minor
not
wording
not
change.
changing the import of the policy at all, just to insert that
It's just
clarification.
minor wording
So,
change.
I don't see why not.
All right, Dr. Edwards, is that something you all want to take a look at and bring back, or can we go ahead and adjust that?
We can adjust it and just.
All right.
add it, yeah.
All right, so what is the specific language, Mr. Trost, that you're suggesting?
Well, so it is explicitly understood by someone reading that is the proper term that for, Virginia Board of Education Standards of Learning, or is it
State of Virginia.
State of Virginia?
I would just say Virginia Standards of Learning, which is what they are called.
And that's what it's, and everybody understands that's a defined term at the code. And it's probably in this code section here, which I haven't looked at.
Well, the code, they just say the standards
The
of
standards
learning.
of
They don't even call it the Virginia Standards of Learning. The code just says the standards of learning, or standards of learning, all capitalized.
Well, I guess our legislators need to be explicit too. So,
Yeah, that's what he.
I mean, yes.
Standards of learning.
Adding the word Virginia Standards of Learning. I'm fine adding that, and we can make that change. So
Is there,
that's agreeable.
Is that clear enough? I mean, I just,
Why not?
is there any board member that would object to adding Virginia? All right, then so noted, and we can continue. Any further questions or discussion on the instruction and program policies that are being presented at, is our second reading? All right, then quite a few of those are before you, and I will not call them all out for that reason. Is there a motion to approve the instruction and program policies as presented to us tonight, with the addition of Virginia to IF?
I so move.
All right, Dr. Day has made the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Andrews. Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Preston.
Yes?
School Board Member Mr. Trost.
yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes?
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Board, and thank all of you for your participation. We're going to move right on into new business. And once again, I would encourage us to limit our comments to that which is significant, salient, and most helpful, as you have been doing all evening. We will now move to new business, which is going to be an opportunity to hear from the Special Education Advisory Committee. Dr. Edwards.
Yes. So each year, the board annually approves the committee members on the advisory committees, of which you have several. Special Education Advisory Committee is one, and we have our Director of Special Education, Ms. Janine Daniels-Bosher, with us to go over the SEAC, which is Special Education Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Dr. Coleman. Good afternoon, Dr. Coleman, Dr. Edwards, and members of the board. The state regulations governing the education of students with disabilities requires that the Lynchburg City Schools appoint a special ed advisory committee annually. The committee meets 4 times a year. On a separate handout, I do have 2 schools that have not given us names. They had names, but then the 2 people withdrew their name. So they are asking 2 other people. So I will have them when it goes for consent at the next meeting. But the rest of the board members are there with the dates that we plan to meet. This advisory committee works to advise you on unmet needs, assist the school division in formulation and development of long-range plans, participates with the development of strategies and priorities, and assists the division in interpreting plans for the community. So this is just up for informational this meeting. It will go for consent at the next meeting. And does anybody have any questions?
For us at the next meeting. All right, thank you so much. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Trost.
Okay. Just so I understand, are these staff personnel people, or are these the general public people?
These are parents of students with disabilities that are at each of the schools.
All right. And is that a requirement to be on this committee, that they have a enrolled student Is it enrolled students
Yes.
with disabilities? Okay.
Yes.
And that's a requirement to be on here? Okay.
Yes, it is. And we have a lot of other community members that attend. They're just not a member of the actual committee itself.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And of course, when concerns ever come up that are real and timely, persons can shoot that through that committee. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. We'll now move to K2, which is the Equity Task Force Advisory Committee. This is also for information. And Dr. Edwards.
Yep, and this is another advisory committee by policy that the board has, and Director Reeves, if she is, she is physically here, there she is. We'll talk a little bit about the Equity Task Force.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Excuse me, the Equity Task Force is an advisory committee that is formed to, or that was formed to address really areas that, of course, we practice. We want to make sure that we are, of course, providing some support and some review of our practices. Those areas include staff recruitment and retention, students, academic and climate training, of course, all of our stakeholders, parents, students, staff, school board, and community, cultural diversity, both the celebration and the recognition, and then access and barriers, increasing access opportunities and removal of barriers. We decided, because this committee has been meeting for quite some time, that our areas of focus this year would be the achievement gap and student mentoring. And so we will continue with that. You see names of members who have been with us, particularly last year, and you also see two names of folks who, when watching the school board meeting, said, you know what, I want to be a part of that. And so we welcome them. That's just the slate of names that have been presented.
All right, thank you very much. And the achievement gap consideration, I know this board is happy to hear that, and we want to work in whatever way we can. And all of these names, there's some good names on here, are committed to this process. Is that correct, Director Reeves?
Yes, and one thing that I just want to make you aware of, that we will be mindful of taking attendance. When I sent out the request to the board, there were some who had not been as active last year who said, you know what, I'm still in this, I'm still committed to this work. And that just makes my heart glad, because there are some who've been here for quite some time.
All right, thank you, Dr. Brennan.
I just, as I point out, there are a lot of people on this list that have been on it for a long time, and we really appreciate their support. But I also want to thank Director Reeves, because she has been a major force behind this for many years, and thank you so much for your leadership. And I think it's a great idea this year to take these specific projects. So thank you very much for what you've done, and I know it's going to be a successful year. Thank you.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, go right ahead, please, Dr. Gupta.
Dr. Reeves, I'm hoping this achievement gap will be the forefront, and you'll be working with the staff to attain real gains in achievement gap. You know, we've been talking about it for a while. It's time for action. Thank you.
All right. Well said. Thank you, Director Reeves. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. And so I think that's important. Having in my mind this business of well said versus well done. And this is it's clear through this meeting that things are going to be well done. And so I'm happy about that. All right. CTE Advisory Committee membership, Dr. Edwards.
Absolutely. Continue along with the advisory committees, the Career and Technical Education, CTE, Advisory Committee roster is also one that we have, and Dr. Bryant is here or no? Not.
I don't know. Is Dr. Bryant on? Okay, then I will take it.
Okay.
All right. So again, this is the CTE committee. It is the Career and Technical Education Committee. Its purpose is to advise and assist and provide support and also advocacy for high-quality programming that prepares not only our high school students but our middle school students for successful transition to further education and or careers. The Virginia Department of Education and federal CTE regulations define their participation is involved in the development, implementation, and evaluation of CTE programs. So Dr. Bryant works with the members to review the programming that we have and opportunities to expand on that programming. The committee meets regularly and consists of representatives from business and industry, labor organizations, our workforce council, as well as some agencies that may be serving at-risk or special populations, and also community college representatives, teachers, parents, and other interested community leaders. And you see the list of members there. It is a variety of business and labor representation, as well as some Lynchburg City Schools representation, some members from City Council, community college. So that is the membership that's being presented to you.
All right, any thoughts about that? All of these groups is so important, so you don't have to be silent on this. If there are other names or things that you're thinking about, you at least need to get it on the record. And I've attended some of these CTE meetings. They talk about some great stuff to help move us forward. All right, thank you, Ms. Pugh. All right, this will move us to the last item in this section, school and campus safety update, and I know there are concerns on that, Dr. Edwards.
Yes, so Dr. Wartica and I wanted to just share with you all in the community some of the things that we have been doing with regard to school and campus safety, and then not share some of the things, because obviously some of the things are plans that you don't want publicly out there, but we want our public to know that they are on our minds and that we're working on these things. So I'll let Dr. Wartica just explain. Oh, no, I will do it. You want me to do my list? I got it. All right. I will go through the list of things that we're going to do. One of the first things that we had the opportunity to work with the Department of Criminal Justice to apply for a grant for digital mapping of all of our buildings. I am pleased to say that we were awarded the grant for all of our buildings. So that is in the process of being done, which is really great. We've also talked about some ways to slow and defer entry into our buildings. So we have some plans and protocols, and I don't want to go into the specifics of that. But I know that that is very important, that should we ever have an incident, being able to defer, slow down entry into our buildings is going to be really, really important. On the flip side of that, the folks that we do want in our buildings, rather quickly, police, fire, first responders, we've also worked with them to increase a more expedient access into our buildings and making sure that they have the appropriate ways to, if there's an emergency, that they can get in. We've also focused with them, and we had a meeting with our SROs and with Chief Zudema in terms of just some basic things, door locks, radios, cameras, and just talking about use of those things, access to them, and making sure that we have the appropriate protocols around those. Happy to mention that Lieutenant Carson, Sergeant Smith, and Officer Hall joined us at our senior summer leadership summit on Friday, the 22nd. They gave a presentation to all of our administrators, along with Dr. Wartica, Cecil Jackson, our safety manager, with regard to safety procedures. So we reviewed our lockout, lockdown, and evacuation procedures. Also, received some training on gang awareness and other things relative to our community. So once again, just showing that our LPD force is committed to working with us, training our administrators who turn around and train our staff on things that we need in order to keep our staff, students, and families safe. We've also worked with our administrators, just talking about safety in general, and some of you had the opportunity to participate in our youth mental health first aid training. We had an opening session at our summer leadership, and really this is similar training when you think about injuries and you think about first aid and being able to respond rather quickly with some basic first aid that may save someone's life, or at least keep them in a stable sense until help can arrive. The same thing is for youth mental health, right? So we went through a course that helped us be youth mental health first aiders. In other words, what are some strategies that we can use with our young people when they are exhibiting struggles, what to look for, what to notice, how to get help how to keep children safe and stable, how to engage families. And that was a requirement training for all of our administrators. We opened it up to school board members because we want anybody who's in education who is part of a child's life to have this training. We will be going through our entire staff with this training. I'm grateful to Student Services Department, specifically Karen Carlson and Kristen Robertson, who did our training most recently. They are our social workers who brought this to us to do this particular training on, again, youth mental health first aid. We also met, Reed and I met with Chief Zudema to discuss some other options for safety, working with community members as well. So we're excited about some of the things that we're going to do there. And then on August 11th, Senator Newman and the legislative delegation representing all of our 5 county areas in the city of Lynchburg, we are going to have a Region 2000 School Safety Summit, which is all of the superintendents, and Chief Zudema will be going along with the sheriffs, the lead sheriffs, deputies from the various counties, just to talk about school safety. And I say that to say that school safety is always on our minds, and we are constantly talking about it. In addition to having Dr. Wodeka join us, we do have a position in Cecil Jackson, who is our safety manager. Cecil has already had the fire department go through all of our buildings, and just making sure that we are, he's keeping us safe and making sure that we are appropriately trained for not only just emergency response, but just general things like chemical hygiene plans and things like that. So he is on it. We are so excited to have him with us and some of the recommendations that he is going to make. We are also, since it's summer, we're working on a crisis plan safety audit. This is something that we do every single year with all of our building principals. School board members, you will have the opportunity to look at the crisis plans. You can't keep them, and we don't put them out there publicly, but we do allow you to review our crisis plans, and we do submit those to the state. And again, working together in collaboration with our first responders. And we also have members from Lynchburg City Schools who sit on the city emergency response team, because it's, if anything were to happen in our city, we are an integral partner and would have to help out. So we do work collaboratively with them. So just wanted to give you just a brief update that several things are ongoing, and some things, like I said, we're not going to publicly publish or let you know. The one thing that I do want to say, and when we had our media conference, this as we open our buildings to volunteers and more folks to come in and work with our children, we do want to maintain safety protocols. So we do want people reporting to the front door, ringing the bell, stating your business, making sure that you have been appropriately clear, passing background checks and so on and so forth. And this notion of being kind and polite, like we all are, and holding the door open for the person behind you, we can no longer continue to do that in a time like now. Even if you know the person, I say we're not being rude, we're being safe when we just close the door and ask people to come to the front door, don't try to enter through the back door. So we will be continuing those protocols with regard to safety. I'm going to shift to COVID, but I want to stop and just talk about building safety, and then if there's anything I missed that Dr. Wodeka may want to add.
If we could, Dr. Edwards, you all go ahead with your piece, and then the board members can raise any questions if they're
So as I continue this safety, we've talked about physical safety, we've talked about social, emotional, mental health safety. Now we got to talk about medical safety and COVID. So this new variant is, because school's starting to tick up, and we are seeing more and more positive cases of it. We are still a mask encouraged, strongly encouraged division, as you'll see us wearing our masks. We're also a vaccination booster if you can division. So if that is something that you can do, you choose to do, we support you in doing that. We are going to continue our partnership with VISTA. We have throughout the summer, and VISTA is our voluntary testing protocol. So once a week, And I can speak to where we are in the administration building every Thursday morning. Staff who have signed up and enrolled in the program free of charge can get a COVID test every single Thursday. And I know some of us are regulars. We meet there and do the nose swab and test just to be safe. And we also have access to testing kits. If it's not a Thursday and you happen to need a test, or if you're concerned, you can also, our Student Services Department also provides us with the Binex now testing kits, and you can self-test and use your phone or your laptop to do that. So we are very big on making sure that we continue our hygiene protocols, washing your hands, safe distancing when you can, and avoiding contact, as well as encouraging the boosters, the vaccinations, and the regular testing, just to be on the safe side. We do have some meetings with VDH. As you all know, Board, I just sent you the latest VDH COVID dashboard, so they will be continuing with their weekly educational dashboard. That is information that they send to us school superintendents and college folks to let us know the status of COVID in our community, health systems, and so on. They will also be providing a voluntary VISTA training. We'll be meeting with the VDH. One is on August 4th, and one is on, I think, August 16th is the second date. And both Deputy Superintendent Pugh and myself will be attending that training to make sure that we are using the most up-to-date protocols for keeping our kids safe, our staff and students safe from COVID.
Very good. All right, so if that completes the report, then we're going to open the floor for board members for questions. Dr. Day.
Yeah, going back to the safety aspect of it, you know, as we watch the news about these horrific events that occur from time to time in, thankfully, other parts of the country, they have often said that the perpetrators of those things have sort of announced their intentions, like on social media and so forth. Are there any measures in place that would identify a person that we ought to be keeping a special eye on because of that kind of thing? I'm not asking you to be specific in an inappropriate way. I just am asking in general.
Well, I could speak to the public version of our Gaggle software, which our families are aware of, and we use very publicly, but it will pick up information if you are showing pictures or using certain languages or certain words. It does send an alert to building staff, building administrators, and if someone is significantly at harm or suicidal, it will even send an alert to 911. So to the degree that children are using their devices, or adults using any of our devices, we can pick up that information. We do have a very good network of word of mouth, and I do want to support our students and our staff with See Something, Say Something, because that is a big deterrent for intervening quickly. Our children don't want to come to a school that there may be a violent event at. They just don't. So they will say something to a caring adult who knows how to respond. So often we'll have folks who will alert us to social media posts or things that they see. Whether in this community, we've had it where it's been other communities who have alerted us to say, we think this might be. And our staff activates very quickly when it comes to that. Social media is tough because it's vast. It doesn't sleep, doesn't need a break. And it spreads very quickly. But again, we are very fortunate that when there is something that looks suspicious, that folks notify us. The good news about combining that with youth mental health first aid, in some cases, it's a cry for help. And we can intervene for students and families in an appropriate way and early.
Thank you very much. Dr. Carter.
You mentioned for some people, you want to slow down the entry. My question is, so what are we doing to make sure like that the students and the staff don't prop the doors open to some of the, to the back doors so someone can get in?
Absolutely. So this is going to be a huge, in terms of our staff, supervision, just making sure, training, awareness of what can happen. when doors are propped open. We do have, and this is again public, we do have cameras in our buildings so that we can monitor some of those doors. They're not every single one of them for sure, but that is another way of just looking. Our administrators do hall sweeps, walk through the halls, check doors. I know when I go to a building, I'm just constantly, don't assume it's closed, like sometimes it looks like it's closed and all you need is a pebble to keep it open, so I'll just pull it and make sure that that door cannot be open. But again, activating both our staff and our students on the importance of safety. And when you think about, when you actually talk with most kids, they're like, I don't want anything like that to happen in our buildings. And this is one way that we can prevent that from happening.
Very good. All right, Dr. Brennan?
I'd like to make two comments. One, I put on my infectious disease hat to thank Dr. Edwards and her team who are working with the COVID protection. I think that the bad news is that the numbers continue to be significant. We all know people, including our colleague, Dr. Gupta, but so many other people in the community who have escaped COVID for so long are now getting affected. So it's clearly, unfortunately, has not gone away. The good news is that it's not as severe as it used to be, so that's good, and that we're not seeing a lot of people in the hospital and the ICU. But the concern I know that the administration has and the board has is that we may well have problems with people with absenteeism of staff and students because the rules have still stayed the same. If you get infected, then you're out for 5 days as a minimum and maybe 10 days. So to do whatever we can do to try to keep people healthy, even though they may not want to, but particularly our staff, I think is going to be very important to us, and have testing available so that staff can have the test to be done. So unfortunately, I make a comment as far as the safety goes, just in that, you know, we are so fortunate that we've never had a significant violent episode in our schools, but I would bet that 2 months ago, the Uvalde School Board was probably sitting around a similar table like this and going through a similar exercise and thinking it won't happen to us, and we certainly don't want it, but we know it can happen. So we are all so sensitive to what can happen and what a disaster it is, and feel so terrible for the families and the communities that have had to deal with this. And I'm sure, Dr. Day, you were probably at Virginia Tech when that happened at Virginia Tech, which was obviously the major tragedy for our state. But out of that event at Virginia Tech, actually Virginia was one of the first states to legislate that you have to have a threat assessment team in each school to try to prevent violence. And I think this is so important for us to be aware of and for our community to be aware of, because we want to protect everyone, but it is so hard to protect because so many times these shooters are somebody who's been in the school, knows how to get in. So to prevent it is really most helpful. And I think we know, we recently reviewed a policy to this effect, and I don't know, maybe someone can make a comment from the administration as far as what those threat assessment teams are, what their goal is and their mission, and who participates to try to prevent something from getting out of control.
So it's a combination of multiple staff, administrative staff, SROs are part of our threat assessment team. You have all of our guidance, support staff, psychologists, social workers. When appropriate, school nurse is someone else who participates on that team. And sometimes just carrying teachers and individuals who are like this, I really want to participate on that team. What's important to know about threat assessment teams is they take priority. So when we have a threat, and if it's an imminent threat, it's automatic, right? We activate the team, everything else stops. So sometimes folks get upset when, you know, you didn't call me back or you missed that meeting or whatever the case may be if they're doing a threat assessment. And the team does a really good job of reaching out to students and families and to some degree connecting with local resources if there are resources in the community that we can connect students with. I will say that we have an extremely, extremely caring staff who will go above and beyond. And the threat assessments, again, sometimes they don't sleep. So sometimes you might get a call in the middle of the night, which would require that we activate the team or alert, you know, individuals and things like that. So each school does have a threat assessment team. We do provide backup for them. And in addition to the school team, sometimes members from one team might have to assist at other schools if there's something that's going on as well.
Dr. Brennan?
Just one other follow-up comment related to Dr. Day's comment before. So we do have Gaggle in place, which looks at school correspondence. Unfortunately, it does not look at social media. It has to be within the school system. But it is very good. In that example of that, my niece who graduated 2 years ago wrote an email, and she was very pleased with the exercise that she's been done. So she referred to her guns getting better. And we got a call from the principal saying that Morella was talking about guns on email, and we made sure that it was not a problem. So it is very effective, but I think that the see something, say something is so crucial. And I guess my last question, Dr. Edwards and to Dr. Wodak, is if a student or a parent is concerned, what route do they take to contact someone? Gaggle is there for our emails and things, but if someone says, I'm concerned, what should they do?
Generally, in our families and our students will generally alert a teacher, a coach, a nurse, the head custodian, whoever they feel is a comfortable adult. And it doesn't even have to be an adult that they know. I mean, they can literally just stop you and say, I'm concerned about something that's going on in the hallway. And our students are pretty good about doing it. Families as well, and I do want to celebrate our families because they do email us, they'll call their principal, they'll let their school counselor know, they'll call a nurse, they'll tell their kindergarten teacher. Again, and our staff are trained to make sure that the appropriate people are aware and are aware quickly. So this isn't something that, you get told on a Monday and you'll, I'll see Dr. Coleman on Friday, I'll let them know. They immediately do that. And we do want to encourage that. And to our community, no, we don't get mad. I'd rather be safe. And I've had people say, I'm not sure this is anything, but you might want to just look at. They have sent us Facebook screenshots, Instagram shots, pictures. They've sent us neighborhood photos. Whatever it is that is concerning our citizens who are concerned about our kids and our families, they have worked with us and we have responded. And we do work collaboratively with our LPD if we need to. Our school resource officers are amazing that they assist us with anything like that. But to our community, I mean, pick up the phone, call, email, text, stop, talk. And it doesn't have to be your child's teacher. You don't even have to have a child in the school. I have people who don't have kids in the school who still let us know that we were out and it was late night Friday and we saw this occurring and you may want to check on or check up on that. And to the degree that we really are a caring community, just check on your neighbors. I mean, it goes without saying, particularly like over the weekends and things like that. Just again, everybody, if we see something, say something and just keep an eye out on the people who are around us and just make sure they're safe.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Gupta, did you have anything you wanted to add?
So thank you.
Okay, Dr. Carter?
I just thought about a group that would be the first people to experience anything, the attendance clerks. Are they all behind some type of protection or barrier or glass?
So one of the things I talked about was our safety manager and his ability to walk through buildings and spot everything that needs to be adjusted. And in some of our buildings, we do have the vestibule, which is the double layer of glass. And in some instances, there may have been a person who was sitting there in my conversations with building principals talking about moving them out of that space. But we do just need to be conscious just about windows and glass in general, right? No matter where you are. And that's something that we are talking about.
All right. Yes, Dr. Carter?
Can we, for section K, number 1, 2, and 3, can we put those on the consent agenda? I think this one's just
We've already voted on the consent agenda.
for next.
Oh, for next time.
I have no problem with that. It can always be pulled if a board member comes with some comment about a name or additional names. So, so note that, Madam Clerk. All right. Any further questions on this safety? Thank each of the board members for your questions and comments. Obviously, this is incredibly important to us, and thank you to our administration and to our board for making sure that our schools are safe. All right, we'll now move to section L, which is the superintendent's comments.
Okay, well, we had fun times in July. We had lots of summer programs, lots of kids that participated. I'm real grateful for the staff and students and families who showed up in the summer, and they did a good job of making it both academically rigorous while also fun. But we're about to turn a corner and open up school. Bass is already in, so thank you to that staff and students for showing up and being a good role model for the rest of us. We did have graduation this summer. You know, we had graduation at the end of May, but we had 4 students, 3 showed up in person, who completed their high school requirements and graduated in the summer. And yes, while we want everybody to graduate in May, we want everybody to graduate, period. So we were grateful to support them at a little ceremony that we had at EC Glass with both principals and the summer school staff there. Our staff here had a wonderful retreat bonding at Riverside Park. We do once a year try to take the administration staff and do a little bonding exercise, and it was a great time to welcome the new folks. I mentioned our summer leadership summit that we had on Friday, July 22nd, but what I didn't mention is that we had 2 visitors, and Dr. Day and Ms. Preston, who joined us in the morning for our family simulation, which is formerly known as the poverty simulation if you've been around for a bit, but it really gives our staff an eye-opening view of what some of our families experience in Lynchburg as they just try to go through their daily lives and activities. We did have a press conference right over there on Wednesday, July 27th, and we invited all of the media, and it's one of the things that we are going to get back to. We had more of a chat, a press chat, a media chat, and it was just an opportunity to sit and talk with directors and Deputy Supes and myself and members, you know, of the media, and they were excited to do it. We were excited to do it, so we're going to do more of those, as well as that was followed by some on-camera interviews that we also did, which you've probably seen in the media and along with News in Advance article as well. Friday, we got to welcome our new staff as they were picking up their devices and just getting all set and ready for when they come in later this week. So it's great to be at EC Glass to meet them. They are actually reporting officially tomorrow. Starts the new staff if you want to just stop by and encourage them as they join us. Some new, some returning. I just want to take a moment and give a shout out to everybody for their recruiting efforts and helping the HR department. We've had some folks who have left Lynchburg City Schools in the past, and they have come home because home is where they need to be. So we're going to continue to go back and get our good folks and bring them back home. So if you're out there and you think Lynchburg has forgotten you, we have not. We want you to come back and join our family. And they are really excited. Some of them are in new roles and different roles than they were when they were here originally. And we're just going to benefit from the gifts and talents that they've learned elsewhere as they come back home. We got some wonderful things coming up. We have Techstravaganza, which is on Thursday. And that's one of the largest free tech conferences here in Virginia, put on by our staff, who are amazing. If you've ever seen our ITRTs and our tech staff, they are absolutely wonderful. That will be Thursday. Back to school celebration is on Saturday at 10 o'clock. We are partnering with One Community, One Voice at the University of Lynchburg. It's a back to school celebration that's inclusive of Lynchburg City Schools, but really looking at everybody that's going back to school. We're trying to really celebrate the youth in our town. Enrollment Day is August 10th. I talked a little bit about that, and please, please, please make sure that you do your online registration early so that you can just come in and meet your teachers, get your schedules on Enrollment Day. We are having pre-K, K, 6th grade, and 9th grade orientation on Monday, August 15th, followed by the first day for the rest of our students on Tuesday, August 16th. So the next couple of weeks are going to be pretty busy and buzzing, and then all of our kiddos will be back in about 2 weeks. And we're really excited for that. You guys talked to Ms. Custer in transportation last time. She is busy working on those schedules and just making sure. But to my families, we can do some amazing bus routes when we know you need a bus. So please do not wait till the last minute to register so that we can have the most accurate bus routes possible early. Our bus drivers would have the opportunity to practice their routes. It is problematic when we do have to change bus routes or add lots of students to different routes. So again, I'm encouraging all of our families, if you have not already done online registration, which triggers that, please do that.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards, for reflecting your robust activity and leadership. We're going to now move to our school board comments, and this gives each board member an opportunity to share some of your experiences in traveling around or items that you would like to bring to the board's attention or to the community's attention. And we're going to start with school board member Preston.
As was mentioned before, Dr. Day and I had an opportunity to go to Heritage to participate in, well, it really is kind of a role play. But it's always very eye-opening because you recognize that some of our families experience some challenges that we were not even aware of. And that's a good thing, because then that helps us to know how to deal with those challenges. So if you ever get an opportunity to participate in that, I encourage you to do so.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Preston. Mr. Trost.
Thank you, James. I want to just share my gratitude and excitement to hear about our focus from the Equity Task Force on working on the achievement gap. It's a pet project of mine. I've been working on it for a while, and really happy to see that we're having a concerted, renewed focus on that. Along those lines, I want to remind the citizens, the parents, the guardians of these students, we need community support, because we're all need to work together to help close that gap. We have a lot of individuals that want to help, want to get involved, but the Lynchburg City school system can't do it all by themselves. And I know there are a lot of people in the community that are willing and able to jump in there and help, and on the Equity Task Force, a lot of those names are already involved in that. But we really need to have the parents and the guardians of the children get involved. We all want those children to succeed, and part of getting a nice future and a successful future is having a good education. I don't want to have to see reports of our reading and our writing and our mathematic levels being so low. And with the help of the community members, the students, parents, and guardians, we can really make some inroads on that. And I'm pleased that we're doing that as a school system, and just again, pleading that the parents and guardians get involved to help us close that gap.
Thank you, Mr. Trost. Dr. Sinha.
What he said. No, I do see this as a year where hopefully, even though COVID isn't finished with us, that we can, at least in terms of the business we're doing around this table, be done with COVID. Fingers crossed, I hope I haven't jinxed us. To really focus on, my top priorities this year as a board member are to really focus on that achievement, performance gap, and do whatever we can to support our faculty, staff, whatever. Make our pleas to City Council should we find areas where investments need to make. I'm willing to go to bat for that. And secondly, to look at our fiscal challenges, opportunities, HR and all that. And I was really excited to hear Bob Brennan remind us that in our reports on the finances to look at a different way. And I'm ready with to consider pie charts and stuff like that. Although, don't be afraid, finance people. I don't want to make added work for you. I'm going to work with you. But I think there are ways we can do some simple data visualizations that might make all these numbers and tables that float around a little bit more comprehensible for those of us who are challenged by tables and think visually, which is me. So, and I want to appreciate our meetings so far have been very effective and efficient. And we're off to a great start. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha. Thank you for your leadership. Dr. Brennan.
So just very briefly, I've really enjoyed seeing in the news in advance the athletes of the region for the last several weeks, and there were some great athletes in there, many of them from Lynchburg City Schools, including Mr. Cho's daughter, V.B. Cho's for volleyball, and Alicia Oakes, who has been such a gift to Lynchburg City Schools, and Eli Wood, who was the most valuable player in the state for lacrosse and going to play football at UVA. So that was really fun to see, and Lynchburg City Schools are so well represented. And then lastly, there was a local surrounding school board that had some difficulty with a resolution supporting their staff. And I would just say that I'm sure on behalf of this board, we certainly are supporting our staff, and we're so thrilled for those who are coming back. We're thrilled for the new ones who are here. And I know that this board will do everything we can to help them be successful along with our students. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, for your comments. Dr. Carter.
I just want to stress the importance of parents to go ahead and register your students. So please do that so we can all start off so that no one has to be stopped or asked questions, so they have the smoothest first day possible. Also, I attended the Conference on Education where we had Julian Barlow, the Virginia Superintendent of Instruction, and also Amy Gutierrez. She's the Secretary of Education. And they really have an ambitious plan, is that they're going to have IEPs for every child in the state of Virginia. But when I was there, I was thinking this is already July. And I was thinking about the burden of teachers, but they're going to train the teachers. I don't think it was going to happen this year. But, and the purpose is so that every student will have an IEP so that the teacher can meet the child where they are with using that IEP. So that was a really ambitious plan. They're still looking for ways to do that and put that into practice. As Dr. Edwards stated, I participated in the youth mental health first aid. Our trainers were Brittany and Sarah W. And it's wonderful just to make sure that people are aware of the signs so that you can help any child that needs that. And we had one gentleman in there, there was one person that was very honest and stated that they really didn't work with children, but he was one of the most impactful people because he had a lot of ideas and he had children, and he saw how that really does make a difference. And I would just encourage everyone, even if you don't feel like you come in contact with children, but you do, to do that. And I just want to challenge every church or hall or mosque or wherever you go, to really talk to your children regarding how they are to behave and act in school, and how they can work with the teachers, work with everyone, and if they're bullied, where they can go, so they can have a wonderful time. So I think if we have children that are in these organizations or religious organizations, if we can talk to them and just incentivize them, challenge them, and just say, all the students at this church or synagogue or whatever, that we're not going to be in a disciplinary committee meeting. You know, you have people here that you can talk to, and we can use that also to challenge kids so that we can see a decrease in that and where they can go or come to someone member at the church that knows how to reach out to other people for help.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carter. Dr. Gupta.
So I wanted to thank everybody for allowing me to join through Zoom today. And I wanted to tell people that please don't be just a problem finder. We have to work together to be solution finders. This human resource is not unique to LCS. It's all over the United States. But please do come with the solutions so the superintendent and the school board can use those solutions to make our district the top district in Virginia. So I'm looking for collaboration from community, and I will shout out to Mr. McCain. This is your opportunity now to bring the achievement gap down. Please work with us, since now you're on the equity task force, to bring this achievement gap down. We have about $23 million sitting in the coronavirus money for learning loss. It's still unused. That money needs to be used by September 23. Dr. Monica, I don't know if I'm correct on dates, but the money needs to be used. The resources are there. It's just a matter of utilizing those resources and achieving the goals we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Dr. Day.
Well, two things. I also participated in the poverty situation, role play session, and my candid response was, it made me very uncomfortable because I did not grow up in circumstances like we're being simulated there. And so I was sort of painfully made aware of how difficult it can be for families dealing with that stuff. Just the chaos of coping with so many different problems all at once, I think was an education for me. So although it made me uncomfortable to be in the middle of that, not because it was a bad program, but because it was an effective program, I think that's what I needed, to be made uncomfortable in that situation. So it was good for me. Secondly, several people have talked about the importance of what we call the achievement gap and addressing it. And I think for me, you know, as I've been just taking in all that happens in the school district and on the school board, I've been telling myself I need to identify what are the real central issues that I want to focus on, because it's so easy to just get carried away by the flood of so many activities and things going on. What do I want to stay focused on? And that is, I think, the number one priority for me as well, to try to figure out what can we do to make an improvement. And I don't have an answer, but I want us to find ways to listen to people who have ideas about that, whether it's teachers, whether it's parents, whether it's outside consultants. I think we need to find some things to try. Maybe there's things that we're doing that are not being very effective for us, and we need to maybe let go of them and try something else. I don't know. But for me, that's the number one issue that I am going to try to zero in on as we go through the year.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Day. Mr. Andrews.
I just simply want to say thank you to the teachers, custodians, the nutrition staff, the people that work the office. Like, I really appreciate what they do, right? Because without them, like, LCS doesn't mean anything, right? It's just an empty building, just a facility. Wow. And so I know this school is going to be starting in another week and a half on the 16th. Things are about to get crazy. Kids are going to be wild, right?
It's gonna be wild.
But I just want to encourage all the staff to know that they're not in it by themselves, right? Like, the board is supporting them 120%. And I know there's going to be some challenges along the way, like we've always had, right? But I do believe in working together. It's not going to be easy, but I do want to thank those people for just kind of just sticking with us, right? And helping us make this division better than it was yesterday. So I appreciate all of them. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Andrews. And so we say to the public, you can clearly see that this board is absolutely resolved to provide educational excellence as a governance team, and we're going to work very hard. The achievement gap has been said over and over, and I want you to know, as chair, I want to join hands with each and every one of my colleagues, and the administration is very, very open to having opportunities with consultants and others so that we can do what we need to do for those who need it in the ways in which they need it. And so I'm very thankful for all of that. At this point, if we could look at our informational items, I would like you to know that our next school board work session is going to be Tuesday, August the 16th. Keep up with that particular featuring as things are added. One item will be to take care of a matter concerning an addendum to the superintendent's contract, if you will, in relationship to what we need to do with that in light of the last performance look. And what persons have received. And so that is already should be on there, Madam Clerk. So we're building our agenda for that and anything else we need to add. Our retreat on the 20th, the Vice Chair and myself will be working very diligently. Thank each of you who did submit your topics that you would like. And what we are doing is we're collecting all of that and then working first with our agenda prep meeting on Tuesday to make sure that we know what is already down for that time. And then we'll get back with board members to see where there is the most interest for the items that you sent. So we'll probably send something out to kind of help guide us to determine what 3 or 4 items we'll have or more on the agenda. So please be alert on the lookout for that. September the 13th is clear, our council school board meeting. The 21st, which is going to be our governance training in Charlottesville, and the 17th, it's going to be in Charlottesville, and that's going to be the self-evaluation piece. So I think that covers everything. And with Dr. Gupta's return, and Dr. Gupta, thank you for everything you provided. You look great, and appreciate what you said. We'll probably be able to do our picture next time on the work session, and so we'll send some information out regarding that. I think that covers everything that we need to know as far as informational pieces, and the meeting for finance has already been determined as well. Yeah, we're going to go into closed meeting now, yeah. So now for O, item section O, we will now, pursuant to the Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A1, the school board needs to convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following specific matters, and that is the superintendent evaluation. Is there a motion for us to enter into a closed meeting?
I'll move.
Been moved by Dr. Sinar, seconded by Dr. Carter. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Charles.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
All right, we will now go into closed meeting, and thank everyone for joining. We will come back out very shortly.
We stay here, you think?
Yeah, we can stay right here, I believe would be best. If you want to get your meal, if you can, you got snacks.